Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Hashim Kazi. I'm the Senior Manager of the Network Talent Initiative, part of the Brigade Network team here at Code for America. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you all have dedicated an hour of your time to learn more about the Community Fellowship Program. As the application deadline is rapidly approaching, I'm even more pleased for the fact that we have some esteemed 2018 Community Fellows joining us today. Currently on the call, we have Jesse and Patrick and Brittany. I'm excited to have them walk you through some of the highlights of their experience as fellows last year. But before we do that, we are going to go through, actually, let me share my screen right now. All right, can everybody see that? Okay, great, thank you. All right, so again, this is the 2019 Community Fellowship Q&A. Part 2, really. We had the first one back on February 27th. We had a lot of great dialogue occur. We're hoping to continue that. So as we go in, I want everybody to understand that this is an opportunity to receive updates about the Community Fellowship Program as a whole, hear firsthand what the experience was like from some of our fellows from 2018, and then ask any questions you might have. At this point, I want to remind everyone that we have some resources available on our website. So codeforamerica.org/fellowship, you can find FAQ, you can find a link to our brochure that we created for government partners to help understand and digest how the program operates. So if you have questions either about the materials there, about what we cover, or about something not covered, there will be time at the end of the call to ask those questions, and our team will do our best to answer them. And if we don't have the answer, we'll get back to you on it, okay? One thing we do not want to spend our time doing, I want to make sure we're clear on this, is we don't want to spend time trying to redesign the program, all right? We're already near the finish line with the application deadline approaching in a matter of days. So we want to get those questions answered about how we can get those applications filled out in strong project teams form. All right. Thank you for indulging me there. So, our agenda for today, we're going to review the Community Fellowship Program. We'll talk about goals for the year as well as the timeline, which is of the utmost importance. Then, my favorite part of today's agenda is we have some special guest speakers. Again, we have Brittany, Jesse, Patrick, and Ben. We're going to walk us through what it's like to be a Code for America Fellow. And then we'll do some question and answer. So as we're going through and questions pop up in your head, please jot them down, okay? If you want to write them down with an actual pen and paper, feel free. We're all on computers, so use that, whatever makes you happy. But at the end, we'll open it up and then we'll take those questions as they're presented. All right. So the goal of the Community Fellowship, the ultimate goal, is that every city in the United States has community-based leadership supporting the principles and practices of delivery-driven government with an emphasis on equity and inclusion. Okay? That is a lofty goal that we think that with over time, the spirit of the Community Fellowship, we can actually achieve. So what does a Community Fellowship actually look like? Well, the Code for America Community Fellowship strengthens the relationships of our local brigade network leaders, which are you all, and your local governments, helping to create conditions where changes can stick. Okay? We are providing much needed technologist talent to help improve service delivery to those who need it most. Code for America Fellows spend 6 months collaborating with government staff, researching user needs, meeting with key stakeholders, and improving service delivery to vulnerable populations. Code for America Fellows look like experienced mid-career professionals who are invested in strengthening local services in government with long-term, sustained relationships. We're looking for folks who have an active role in their local brigade. And we're looking for highly sought after, skilled engineers, designers, researchers, project managers, storytellers, and more. Last year, just about, I should say between 5 to 10% of all fellowship applicants were accepted. So it is highly competitive. And make sure that you put your best foot forward in your application, and we're here to help you do that. So if after the call you have some questions on how you can best fortify that application, please reach out to fellowship@codeforamerica.org. We are here to help you. We also are very much interested in professionals who are passionate about applying user-centered, iterative, data-driven approaches to meaningful community challenges. This is like a time to give back and serve your community. So last year, we had 4 community fellowship project teams. We had one in San Jose, we had one in Honolulu, one in Austin, and one in Asheville. So in 2019, based on what we experienced in 2018, we want to double that, okay? So instead of 4 project teams, we're seeking 8. And that means we're looking for between 16 to 18 fellows. And I think our current brigade count is either 73 or 74. That means we have an opportunity to reach a large percentage of our community with this program. I'm looking forward to seeing what the interest is and how we can help. So what are some of the goals of the fellowship? Again, 8 fellowship teams, and we want those teams, as indicated on that map on the previous slide, to represent the diversity of our brigades. That includes location, race and ethnicity, gender, skill set, you name it, okay? All fellowship teams, we want to have a government partner, okay? And this is further expressed in the FAQ and the brochure, so be sure to review those if you have not already. We want 70% of the expenses to be covered by local government or local community-based organization, okay? So ideally, local government, but there are some other ways to go about it, which again, are covered in some of the resource documentation. All fellows will be paired with the mentor team. So that means you get support from CFA staff, you get support from alumni fellows, and then also some other prominent friends of Code for America who have tons of industry experience and knowledge to share. All fellowship projects must build the capacity of local government to use the practices of delivery-driven government and address the needs of vulnerable communities via systems change within local government. Included in that is developing measures to track progress. All right, so what's the timeline? Very close, March 31st, applications close. So if you haven't turned in your application yet, let's get working on that. All right, again, we're here to help you if you'd like some help with that. In late April, fellows will be selected and notified. That way we can arrange travel for the fellows to join us at the end of May for the Code for America Summit, which is happening in Oakland, California. We will announce the 2019 cohort on stage. Following week from Summit, we're going to hold orientation at our San Francisco office, right? So the last week of May, first week of June, there will be travel required to the San Francisco Bay Area. Then the fellowship begins. In October, we have another set of convenings. We have our Brigade Congress, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. We have the Public Interest Tech Summit, which is scheduled to take place at Harvard Kennedy School. And then in December, we have the close of the fellowship, and we'll have some closing activities at our offices in San Francisco, in San Francisco. And between June and December is when all of the fellowship magic takes place. We'll also have our site visits that occur where you'll be visited out in your area by Code for America staff, possibly your mentor or mentors, um, and such. All right. Let's see if I can. Okay. So again, if you have questions on this, please, let's ask them in the end, because right now we're going to turn it over to Britney for dialogue on what her experience was last year as a Code for America Fellow. Britney, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Britney Lyons from Austin. Can you hear me? Okay. And I worked with my co-fellow Rohan last year on an affordable housing project for the Code for America Fellowship. We worked, so Austin has grown a lot has grown very rapidly in the last decade. And because of that, affordable housing has gotten more and more scarce. And it's been pushing people who have been living in the city for a long time out of the city and into the suburbs. So our ultimate goal was to build an application to help people looking for affordable housing find it more quickly and more easily and within the government program that was giving them assistance. And so we had been working on the project for about 6 months before we did Code for America. We had actually already built out an affordable housing, a web application for people searching for affordable housing to find it. And we used an open data, Austin's great about open data. We used the portal that they had with affordable housing to populate that map. And, people in government were really, the government was really excited about it. They were like, this is great, this is wonderful. And then it sort of fell off the map. They were really excited at first, and then no one used it. And we came to find out that no one used it because the data was stale. When you're searching for housing, you don't want to see a house on a map that is not available and hasn't been available for a year. You need up-to-date information. And so our fellowship ended up focusing more on, okay, where is all of this affordable housing data? Because it does exist, but it was siloed. It was siloed between a bunch of different government agencies, and it was in Excel spreadsheets. And even within the agencies, people didn't know where to go to update the data and do all that. And so we created a data portal and a data hub for them to store all of that data and update it in real time. And they can all share one place to keep all that data. And then we also built affordable housing, a search application. We took what we had and we adapted it for mobile, because we learned during our user research at the beginning that the people looking for affordable housing are most likely going to be using a mobile device. So we built the mobile device and the mobile version of it and pulled from this data hub instead of from the open data portal that was provided by the government. And so we had a lot of stuff that we tried to do in 6 months. And we got the basics done. We got all three, we had 3 different parts. We had to combine all the data, find all the data, figure out where it was, combine it, build a data hub to update that data, and also update this application to connect with that data and ultimately serve it to the end user. And so, we didn't quite get it all done up to, what we wanted to have done. There's a lot of data cleanup that had to happen. So I would say, if anyone who's doing a project surrounding data, be prepared for, just be aware that collecting data and getting it up to date and getting it all, in the right format and stuff can be time consuming and difficult. And also, so we got all the data there, but it needs to be updated and cleaned. And so they're still working on that with our government partners. And then the mobile application, they're still working on the final touches and everything. So the government has taken over the project since the fellowship ended. But what Code for America has provided our project for for us. That what was so amazing was we had support, we had backing, and we had a timeline. So what had happened with our original project was it had kind of fallen off the radar, I think, a little bit for the government partners. And we had a good relationship with the government, and that's something that I also suggest for anyone who's applying. Make sure you have a great government partner, because that's going to be the biggest, that's going to make a huge difference. If you have a partner who's invested in your project and who's interested and understands the benefits, that's going to be super helpful. And we had one of those. It wasn't a priority until we got the fellowship, and then they're like, oh, hey, like, I think it helped give, I mean, even though we had already built this application and, you know, it worked, I think it helped give us more legitimacy with the government when we were backed by this larger organization. It helped them trust us more, and it also gave them a timeline. So it kind of lit a fire, and they're like, okay, we're here for these 6 months. We're gonna, you know, this is what we want to accomplish, and it helps really prioritize and kickstart this project and helped us get a lot done in that 6 months. So Code for America was a wonderful experience. And I would say also make sure the whole project, keep your end user in mind. We ended up, you know, demoing our final application for a select group of people who had been in the affordable housing search, and like, it was so game changing to them that there were some of them like started crying. Like they were like, this is incredible. Like when this changes everything. So like that was really motivating to keep the project going. And like, you know, even though there were a lot of hurdles to get there, but it was really important to keep it in mind, like you're changing people's lives with these projects. So yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Brittany. And just a reminder, if you have questions, and I hope you do, please jot them down so that when we get to our Q&A segment of the call, you can ask the questions then, and Brittany and the other fellows will be very happy to answer them at that time. All right, thank you so much, Brittany. Let me go back to, actually, Jesse or Patrick, do you want to share your screen now?
Sure. Whoa. Nope. Yes.
Can you see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So sharing a few of the things that we learned. So we just thought we'd jot down a few lessons and share them with you guys. So the first lesson.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jesse Michel. I'm a 2018 community fellow for Code for America in Asheville.
And my name is Patrick Conant. I was a fellow with Jesse. We also work together. And let's get into it.
Yep. So lesson number one, find a project where the community fellowship can make a difference. And for us, this meant focusing on a problem rather than just trying to build a cool app. Our home, Asheville, North Carolina, continues to struggle with really bad racial disparities and outcomes in the areas of economics, criminal justice, education, housing, and healthcare. So Patrick and I, we both attended UNC Asheville, a local university where a professor, Dr. Dwight Mullen, started a project in 2007 called The State of Black Asheville. And this project used government data to quantify these disparities, which resulted in increased community focus on issues of equity in Asheville. The issue was that last year, Dr. Mullen was retiring, and the project, which had wide community support, really had an uncertain future. But the community fellowship, it provided us with a really unique opportunity to bring a government partner, the city of Asheville, to the table to collaborate on the project in a more formal role. So our first advice here is just to remember that the community fellowship is about bringing together brigade members and partners from both the community and government. So just make sure that your proposal is able to leverage the benefits of this collaboration, I would say.
So our next point is to use the community fellowship as an opportunity to build momentum. If you're working on a difficult or large problem, you're probably not going to solve the whole thing in 6 months, but that's a feature, not a bug. In our case, we focused on archiving all of the student research done over the past 10 years through the State of Black Asheville project, while also putting a lot of work into helping the project transition from being a undergraduate research effort at a university into something that could be a community resource that anyone could get involved with. Furthermore, by working with our government partner, the City of Asheville, we were able to build infrastructure that allows us to do statistical analysis of city data in real time. So taking their open data efforts and taking them a step further so that we can make the data useful to the public. Also, Dr. Mullen's vision for the project has always been to encourage policy level change in our local institutions. So the community fellowship was really important because not only were we moving the project forward, but it generated excitement and allowed us to bring institutional leaders together to the table to talk about the project, talk about the data, and talk about what we could do next. So our lesson here is, while the work of the State of Black Asheville is still ongoing, we're still working on the project and there's a lot to do. The community fellowship allowed us to position the project for a sustainable and successful future.
So our last point, as your fellowship comes to a close, you'll want to create a plan to grow your team. So for us, by the end of the fellowship, you'll probably be wondering what's next. So what we think is critical is to establish a sustainability plan early in the process. I guess around midway, we started putting together ours, and I think we quickly realized that it required a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of thought. So getting that together earlier is always better. As we reached the end of our fellowship, we identified priorities to ensure the sustainability of the project, which included coming up with measures like an advisory board, identifying what kind of supporting staff we'd need, and identifying rough funding goals, and also trying to determine a long-term home for the project, and also institutional partners in our community who could support it over the long run. So just thinking about that is very helpful to do early on in the process.
And with that, I do want to add that it's important to remember that one of your biggest assets you have are your fellow community members. So towards the end of our fellowship, we held listening sessions that brought together over 30 community leaders to discuss their vision for the future of the project. And not only did these sessions encourage us to continue the work and validate that we're on the right track, but they also provided us with a lot of new ideas for how the project could grow and make an even bigger impact in our community. And even more importantly, some of the people at these listening sessions raised their hands and said, how can I help? How can I help move this project forward? So in closing, our advice is really to plan for the future of your project while you're doing the work of the fellowship. Because while the 6 months we had with the fellowship really allowed us to do a tremendous amount of work to move the project forward, in many ways the work is ongoing. Mm-hmm. So it's important to keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you both.
How do I get out of here? There we go. No.
Stop share is at the top. So the right.
All right, excellent. Well done. And I just want to, first of all, commend the three of you for sharing to this point. That was great. And I think I would like to, first, before I open it up for questions, I want to say that, we made some changes last year to the fellowship, some significant ones from our Legacy Fellowship program, some of which were we source talent from within our brigade network. Okay? The idea being that we find local talent in the community to pair with government, and instead of parachuting in from San Francisco. Okay? So we had some very passionate fellows in the legacy model. They didn't get a chance to spend as much time as they may have liked in their host city. And then when the fellowship ended, there was a desire for more work or continued efforts that unfortunately wasn't available based on the setup and the fact that they didn't live there. And so what folks on this call have just heard is that even after the fellowship ended, there's still work happening in Austin. There's still work happening in Asheville. And that's very exciting because even though, as Brittany pointed out, they tried to do an awful lot in 6 months and didn't get to all of it. What happened was, and very clearly, was that all the people involved across multiple offices, departments, and organizations were able to get a shared vision of what was possible in terms of affordable housing there, right? In Asheville, what we saw very clearly is that folks who were not accustomed to working together, shoulder to shoulder, were then all working towards the same goal and still continue to this day. And I just really want to take my hat off to Brittany, to Jesse, to Patrick for putting in the work, not only because it is hard work, but because we were piloting this community fellowship last year. And based on your efforts, we're able to continue it and grow it. So thank you. I do want to give a shout out to my esteemed colleagues and team members who are on the call. I know Veronica is on, Tom is on, Meredith, I know you're out there. So I just want to say thank you for being present. Not going to put you on the spot to do any warm-up activities. All right, so we're now at our question and answer period. Okay, so we will open it up for folks to ask questions. Notice that I put the fellowship URL on the screen there. Make sure that you jot that down. We have a lot of information there, and we're always looking to add more. So if there's something that's not there currently, let us know, and we will do our best to get it up there. All right, so with that being said, let's open it up. Anybody have any questions? And that is about the program, about what Brittany or Jesse and Patrick shared. Feel free to chime in.
Hello. I have a quick question. Thanks for sharing, guys. This is really cool. Just a question for people who are applying and will be watching this video. I'm just kind of curious, when you guys were applying for the community fellowship, I think the application has not changed dramatically since last year in terms of structure. So I'm kind of curious, when you were applying last year, what a challenging part of the application process was for you guys, and how you guys overcame that. If I can put you on the spot for that, either.
I think overall the application was pretty straightforward. It was something we were comfortable with in terms of describing the project and what we were going to do. I think the budget was what was challenging.
Right, yeah.
Because we were kind of involved with the project, planning to do it as volunteers. So then seeing the budget piece was not something we were fully anticipating, and also the coordination there between us and the government partners. So I would say the budget was probably the trickiest part.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that. That was definitely something we struggled with as well. I don't think we internalized the fact that the government would be paying for a fair chunk of it, and we didn't really talk to them before we applied about what they were paying for or what was happening. Luckily, they worked with us, and we got it all worked out. But yeah, the government, you will want a government partner that's willing to pay for something, and figuring out the budget from there. Just be ready for that. We also, I think one thing that helped us is we definitely had a vision for what we wanted to do in the fellowship. I mean, not everyone has that, and that's definitely not required, but it really helped us from like day one to hit the ground running, because we had a very clear idea of what was needed and what we wanted to do with that.
And I just wanted to kind of plus one that the importance of working things out with your government partner well ahead of time is very important, because the government moves slow. We're trying to fix that, but you know, I don't know, as community members, we can make decisions very quickly and just start doing something. But to get buy-in from a government partner typically takes a little more work, and there's more people that need to sign off.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and in our case, you know, our project had to be approved by our city council, so that was a whole thing.
And yeah, and luckily, you know, we have a close relationship with the city through Code for Asheville, but something to keep in mind, just know what the steps are and make sure you're able to move it forward in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions, and thank you for those answers. I think I have a similar question, but before I ask the question, I want to reiterate one of the earlier points, where we are definitely looking for local government to contribute approximately 70% or more of the project costs. The way that we attempted to make this sustainable for Code for America to provide on an ongoing basis is by, you know, sharing the responsibility in that manner. But what we learned last year, we learned so much. One of the things we learned last year is that when local government hires the community fellows directly as temporary employees, it reduces the amount of the financial contribution they directly need to make to Code for America. So one of the concerns that's often raised when we're talking about community fellowship is the fact that it doesn't necessarily align with any government's budget cycle, right? And so how can a government pay the required contribution when they haven't budgeted for it? What we learned in San Jose last year is that if we take advantage of the ability of local government to hire temporary employees, that really covers kind of the largest expense of the project, which is the fellows' compensation. And so once we do that, then all of a sudden a whole range of possibilities open up. So we are strongly encouraging that government connection that Patrick and Jess just talked about, as well as Brittany earlier, to make sure that that conversation occurs so that when it's time to proceed, everybody is ready and expecting what's to come next. Now, I did have a follow-up question, but first I want to open the floor to anyone else in case someone else has a question. Okay. The question is, now that you've completed your term as community fellows, what do you wish you knew when applying that you know now?
I would just say, you know, from my perspective, you know, Patrick and I, we run a small business. It turned out to be a pretty significant time commitment, which we were, you know, we were able to make it and everything. There is some travel involved, like the Public Interest Technology Summit. So I would just say, you know, be prepared to be a little bit flexible in terms of, you know, making travel plans potentially on short notice in some cases, and, you know, being flexible with your availability and your time to put towards the project.
Right, and I would say, just to kind of pile on to that, just make sure that the structure of the fellowship aligns with where you are professionally, where you are personally. Make sure it's a good fit. Mm-hmm. And it was for us, but, you know, we had to make some adjustments to make it all work.
Excellent.
Oh yeah, I'll plus one that those are great points. I worked part-time on the project and Rohan worked full-time. I would say ideally if you can get 2 people to work full-time, that's, depending on how much you have planned, if you have like a big agenda like we did, go for 2 full-time fellows. Or, you know, be prepared to take more time, you know, maybe work it out with your current job if you're going to do both. Be prepared to, you know, maybe take more time off if you need. Maybe work like half your hours or 3/4 of your hours at your normal job. I definitely was not prepared for that. So.
I would definitely second that. Patrick and I were both part-time fellows, and what I would say is that just the work it's very involved. You're going to be doing a lot more than just building the project. You're going to be coordinating with community partners, your government partners. You're going to be writing a ton of emails, so I don't know. I would recommend. I think doing the full. I think it's hard. It's a difficult thing to compartmentalize. Not only because it's a lot of work, but because it's very engaging, interesting work. So it's just going to be different. You're going to want to do it. So I'd recommend the same thing.
And I think the more time you can put towards the fellowship, the more you can get out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of connecting with other fellows, writing blog posts, documenting what you're doing, all of that is stuff. Honestly, I wish we could have spent even more time doing some of the auxiliary pieces of the fellowship. So.
Great point. And Brittany, did you want to chime in there?
I was gonna say, like, keep in mind, like, most government offices are 9 to 5, like, not before, not after. So yeah, that's when you're gonna end up meeting with your government partners most likely.
Yeah, great call. And about the blog post, I think everybody will see the fellows laughing because that was a lot of fun for us last year as we navigated the blog post request. People want to know what's happening with the fellowship projects. I mean, they're intriguing, they're meaningful, and they're inspiring. And so, within each community, there is a tremendous groundswell of support and movement around these projects. But we want to make sure that we position ourselves to share outwardly and that others have the chance to reap the benefits of the great work that the teams are doing. So I want it to be on the record, because this is being recorded. For 2019, the fellows will be publishing blog posts at a regular schedule. Okay, that's going to be baked into the program. If I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me, hey, is there a write-up about this or about that, then, well, I'd still be working for Code for America. I wouldn't quit, regardless of the riches that I would amass. The point is that we will be making sure that we have blog posts produced. And then a point that I think, Patrick, you said that it's more than building a project. That is such a key point. There's a thing that I like to say, and when talking about the community fellowship, and it's more than building a project. You're also building bridges. And actually, no one's ever heard me say that because I just came up with that, but now it's my new favorite thing to say about the community fellowship. All right. Does anybody else have questions or comments?
I have a question. Thank you all for presenting. This has been really lovely. I just appreciate you sharing and everything that you've given to your experience into your communities. If folks are watching the video after, and they're thinking, this sounds amazing, probably not going to be ready for this application deadline here in 11 days, but maybe next year, should they start thinking about next year, getting organized with their government partners, community partners?
That is a fantastic question. And the answer is a resounding yes, please. If this deadline is approaching too rapidly for you, we will definitely be holding community fellowship in 2020, okay? So now is a great time to start working on that very important government relationship that you heard all of our fellows talk about today. If you don't currently have it, let's start fostering that. At Code for America, we have a track record of making some friends in local government, so we are here to help you establish that if you would like. Just reach out to fellowship@codeforamerica.org, and we're happy to assist you with that. Great question. All right, I have another question for the fellows, and if you could give us kind of if you could sum up the most rewarding memory from your fellowship experience, what might that be?
I think being able to present Dr. Mullen's work with Dr. Mullen in the room to our mayor and our local city council was really exciting, just because, you know, Dr. Mullen, our community partner, was, you know, he's kind of a personal hero for both Patrick and me. So that was a really rewarding experience. And just, I think overall, just his, you know, seeing him, you know, express the gratitude, you know, seeing us being able to carry his work forward, and him, you know, seeing him being so grateful for that. It was like an unbelievable feeling for us, because, you know, he's given so much to the community, and it was just really nice to be able to give something back to him.
And I would say on a personal note, you know, I was a student of Dr. Mullen's 10 plus years ago now, I guess. But seeing the way the state of Black Asheville used government data to advocate for policy change is really why I started to look at civic tech before I even knew it existed. So just to have the opportunity to work with him so many years later, to help that same project move forward, kind of move into the civic tech space, was extremely rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say mine's similar to that. Presenting our project at the end of the fellowship to all of the government partners, all of the government agencies who work in housing at the end, and really seeing them understand the value of this, because sometimes it was hard to communicate with people who maybe weren't as familiar with technology and didn't understand how valuable what we were doing could be for everyone. For them, and also for, you know, most importantly for the people searching for affordable housing. It was just great to see, to find, you know, to get some, you know, like, yes, we've lit this fire, and now, you know, they're going to carry this torch forward, hopefully. That was great. And I, you know, also just, I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know if I can claim this as a memory, but like, you know, when they were demoing the app for people who have been in the shoes of people who have searched for affordable housing, and they started crying. It was so amazing. Like that, there's nothing like, that's the most amazing reaction you can ever get from something you've built. So yeah, it's wonderful.
Thank you. Are there other questions? All right. Let's see if we have an update here. All right, I will say that it doesn't look like Ben will be able to join us, unfortunately. However, I want to, again, just extend all of my gratitude to Britney, Patrick, and Jesse for joining us today. This has been, and I hope I can speak for everyone, that this has been an incredible experience. And, you know, quite frankly, I think there's more to hear from you with respect to your projects. I mean, this has been just eye-opening, and I think that you've really kind of sparked an additional appetite for information about what your experience has been. But thank you. And the work that you've done, I think you really highlighted the fact that as fellows, you were not only working on a project or a product, but you were shifting paradigms, right? And changing perspectives. And I love that it's tangible and you can see it still in operation after the fellowship ended. So thank you so much. All right. Let's see. One final call for questions before we wrap. Is there anything that anyone on the network team would like to add? Okay.
I wanted to add just one thing about the community fellowship that we haven't discussed, which is, I think, the importance of working with other fellows. So much of what we do in civic tech and through the brigade network is, you know, just you and your city. It can feel like you're the only people trying to tackle these giant problems. So one of the things I know that Jesse and I really appreciated from the fellowship was to connect with the other fellows. And, you know, the few times we did come together, it was just really incredible to be able to form connections like that. and to learn from each other. So I just wanted to emphasize how important that part of the experience is.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful. All right. With that being said, again, I want to thank everyone for your time. For more information, visit codeforamerica.org/fellowship. If you'd like to inquire about a fellowship project, feel free to email us at fellowship@codeforamerica.org. Thank you so much.